to be king!
As we get older in life and we gain the ability to think critically and objectively about things, it gets easier and easier to see the things that occur on a day-to-day basis and draw parallels between things. And oftentimes I watch the unfolding of our society and really the unraveling of all social order around the world. And because of the way that I've grown up, because of the tools that I was given by my grandmother and the people who had an influence on my life, I've been able to just watch the way things have gone, and I've been able to notice the strings that are attached to a lot of people, and really a lot of people who think that they're awake and aware. It gets easier and easier to see how people are moved by the strings that they think that they have no involvement with. And one of the matters at hand right now, one of the most divisive, problematic things in America is what I touched on in my last video. And just like I expected, a few things happened. First of all, the decision makers here on this platform have made it abundantly clear to those of us who have a message that is about unity and personal responsibility and accountability and owning one's life. Those of us that aren't spewing a narrative of hatred and vitriol. It's hard for our message to be viewed. It's hard for our message to reach a point, because that's not what it's about. It's about propagating victimhood, every ist or ism that you can find. And they found a way to really control the way a lot of people speak and what they're willing to speak about, because so many people have buried their nest egg in this platform. And luckily for me, that's not really, this is more for the people who listen, people that gain any morsel of help or understanding from what I try to share. So making sure that Al Gore keeps his rhythm on the dance floor isn't really my concern. However, in matters that are as intensive as this one that I want to try to subvert here, I will play the game, and I hope that this video doesn't get short-stopped the way that they have seen fit to do every single time I try to get a message to a certain population. Now, I want to draw a parallel to something that I experienced as a child to what I see today, what I see and what I hear from so many people today, especially concerning the matters that I addressed in my last video. When I was young, we used to live on this big, well, to me at the time, it seemed like a bunch of property. It was probably just a couple of acres, but it was in the country, detached from everything, and there was nothing for us to do but be country kids. So we spent our days out in the woods looking for shit to mess with. And we would always find different bugs and try to make them fight, or different stuff. We put a spider in with a scorpion and just different stuff, just dumb stuff that boys do. But one day we decided that we were gonna get these ants, these little red ants that were vicious when you stepped on their mound, to try to start a war with them and these bigger ants that when they bit you, it hurt. Like, it only took one of them, and then when they hit you, it hurt. And so, we'd gotten aired out by these ants on different occasions, so we wanted to start a war. So we took some of these ants and put them over here, and when we poured them out, they didn't do anything. They just, what's up, homie? Dapped and went on the way. And we didn't understand what happened, why they wouldn't fight. Well, another time we did it, we agitated both colonies. And so in scooping up the little ones, that agitated them. They were agitated as soon as we disturbed their colony. Well, we took them to the war zone. We dug up where the big ants were. We rustled them up because we wanted more of them to come out. And so when we poured the little ones out, the war broke out immediately. And our adolescent curiosity and morbid fascination was satisfied. Well, that's what I see going on today in our culture. Well, we've got people that are obviously benefiting from a system that is owned and operated by the very people that they're telling their own that are oppressing them and keeping them down and denying them opportunity. And one of the biggest examples that comes to mind is Joy Reid. I believe she graduated from Harvard, and this woman spends every moment of time that she has on television spewing her hatred towards Anglo-Saxon Americans, Caucasians. And it's almost like Joy is mad because when she was young, her hair she didn't have good hair like the white girls, and her envy of whiteness, because you can see in the processing of her own hair, in the wearing of a horsetail and all of the things, she's not embracing her own blackness. She doesn't come out there with a big afro with no makeup on her face celebrating her melanation. She actually puts makeup on her face to try to lighten her complexion. She actually does things that white women do. And to me, what I see out of Joy Reid is a self-hatred, because the person that she sees in the mirror isn't the person who she truly admires and wants to be. And I find it very, very curious that these people that get on television and speak this are selling this narrative to those who listen to them, without the consideration that the people who sign their checks, hands, color doesn't match their own. And that alone should make one sit back and think, what kind of game is being played here? But it is the ants. We are all just ants. You know, on my last video, I made a comment that we were all this young white teenager who's being persecuted for defending himself. And when I put that out, I knew that it was going to have a certain impact, because every time I talk about self-accountability in a certain part of our society, every time I put the onus on the real problem, there's always a deflection. But the thing that I found most curious was most of the men who responded to that had a pretty logical viewpoint on it, even if I didn't agree with what they thought. Because the 3%, this is not a supremacist sign. What it means if a patriotic American holds that up is only 3% of the population has the balls, the spine, the backbone, the willingness to step and stand to if and when they're called to arms. That's an old adage. It's not a supremacist thing. There's blacks, Latinos, Indians. There's many Americans who have answered the call to arms, and that's what they are. They're 3%ers. And so when I view this and I view this case, I don't see it in the ignorant lens of propaganda. What I see it is in what they're trying to do, what they're trying to train their puppets, their ants, to believe, to see, to know. And that is, you do not own yourself. You are supposed to submit yourself to the mob. You have no rights. You have no liberty. You have no autonomy. You are owned by the mob, and whatever the mob wants to do, whatever they see fit, you're supposed to sit there and let them do. This isn't about color, and the fact that they've encouraged so many people by using these useful idiots like Joy Reid and that ignorant Hawk Newsom, BLM founder, who likes to brag about how educated he is, yet he has never ever heard of some of the most influential, powerful, and positive speaking black men of our country. You know, I watched the interview of him speaking with Candace Owens and trying to tell Candace in the panel how just absolutely amazing he was. And when they asked him if he had ever read Thomas Sowell's work, he acted as if they asked him if he had ever read Goering's work or anything that Stalin did. He had absolutely no idea who Thomas Sowell is, yet he knows all of the authors who have preached divisiveness. And when you listen to people like this, when you are listening to educated idiots, it's easy to think that you're getting a good source of information because these people are educated and they're on news networks, so they've got to be reputable. But then you have to look at dudes like Don Lemon or whatever his name is, who gets on television just like Joy Reid and is constantly spewing this hate narrative, and then goes home and washes a white man's underwear, cooks his food, and lays in bed with him. You know, if you want to be angry about something, if you want to be upset about something, you should be upset about things that are really affecting the population that you're trying to support. Tearing down a school system, dumbing down a school system, taking out the STEM subjects because it's too hard, and my baby can't learn nothing because it's oppressed. Maybe your baby should stop listening to rap music and following this sick culture. Maybe you should watch what your children are doing, press them to do their homework, and get them to work as hard as the kids that are successful. And if all of that happens, if all of those boxes are checked, then you can talk about somebody holding you back. But until those things are done, the real problem is in the mirror. The real problem is in that community. You know, I don't listen to modern rap for the most part because it's garbage. The narrative that has been spun and the things that are being paid for is the divisive, sick, disgusting culture that so many people like to propagate and brag about and claim as their own. But you go back to where your ancestors come from and you're not going to find this degeneration. This young Dolph guy just got expired, not by a Klansman, not by somebody that hated somebody of another race, by his own, once again. And the outrage that's being poured and the energy that's being expended by the subject that I touched on in my last video, there's not a fraction of it given to finding and holding the feet to the fire of the person who did this, a man, an upstanding man in his community. But when you rap about doing the same types of things that happened to him, what do you expect? The same way was with my dude Nipsey Hussle. Nipsey Hussle's cancellation was close to my heart because I had a lot of respect for Nip. My brother, before he passed away, was trying to start a concert promotion business, and one of the concerts that he put on was with Nipsey Hussle. And Nipsey was a good dude, but the lyrics, the lifestyle, and the crabs in the bucket, you can't have that type of stuff. You know, when you live in a culture that deifies crooks and heroes, these three people that these clowns have saw fit to stick with Superman outfits on, that did dumb things. They put themselves in a situation where they got exactly what they asked for. The fact that those are heroes, the other dude that, you know, that the media has propagated as heroes, and the calling of real heroes like Alan West, Thomas Sowell, Larry Elder, calling those guys the narrative of Uncle Tom and bootlicker and sellout. Those are narratives that have been given to you by your master. They're not original thoughts. You're not saying anything that's a revolution. What you're being used. They riled up the pile of ants and they're dumping another population in to start something so they can step in and squash it. What I tried to do in my last video was try to get people to understand that we are all ants. We're all ants that come from different piles, but we're all ants, and there's no separation between racist and whatnot. If you live in America, you're an American. We're being driven down a road that leads to a cliff that will have no good ending for any of us. My message is not to stand on one side or another, but to stand in the middle where I've always been and try to get both sides of this huge divide to realize that the person that you're looking across from is not your enemy. We're all just ants. We need to look at the foot that keeps dusting us up, that keeps riling us up and putting us against one another. We are not one another's enemies. We are all just fucking ants.